How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne and this is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. In today's video, I've got potentially four big stories to talk about. That really depends on what's announced at the showcase. If there's hardware, that will be in this video. Well, future Jimmy cutting in here because I just watched the State of Play and unfortunately, I gotta say I was pretty much 50-50 on it. There were some really cool games announced. I'm gonna talk about those in a second. We're gonna run through them all, but man, where was all the stuff that needed to be here? Where was the first party support? Where was the PlayStation 5 Pro? I think this shows us that there is a showcase coming. We're just going to be waiting until the PS5 Pro is ready to be announced for it to actually happen. I'm mainly disappointed here because Naughty Dog didn't show up, Sucker Punch didn't show up, Insomniac didn't show up, Ben Studio didn't show up, Santa Monica Studio didn't show up, San Diego Studio, who's allegedly working on the new Uncharted, they were nowhere to be found. Where is the first party stuff? The only thing I can think of is what I just said. They're just saving it for a showcase that's going to happen when they're ready to announce the PS5 Pro. And man, that needs to happen very soon. I heard rumors of September. It can't take that long. It needs to happen, guys. Like, where is Sony? Where is your first party? Oh my God. All right, I got it out. That's my rant. Let's talk about the games that were shown because there was some really cool stuff here. First up, we have Concord. I don't know what to call this. Concord. If you say the place, it's Concord. If you want to say the word like the grape, it's Concord. We're going to go with Concord. This game looks like we've got Guardians of the Galaxy at home. There's an open beta in July and then it's coming out at the end of August. It's just not for me. It's a live service game. It's a 5v5 hero shooter. It looks like Overwatch. It looks like Marvel Rivals. It looks like all the other live service games to me. I saw a bunch of L's in the chat and I'm not gonna like judge it until I actually play it. I will be playing the open beta just to see how it is. But yeah, if this is Sony's first big step since Helldivers 2 into live service, it looks like they're putting a lot of money and energy and marketing behind this. I don't know. It looks fine. It just doesn't look like anything that's blowing the doors open, and doing a hero shooter in 2024 is certainly a move. Ballad of Antara looks awesome to me. Honestly, this one's kind of a sleeper hit for me. I like the idea of the main character having to carry this kid around on his back. The combat looked really cool. The graphics looked cool. It's in the vein of something like Rise of the Ronin or Ghost of Tsushima for sure, but I'm always open to more games like this. There are a lot of games that were in the vein of like this and Dynasty Warriors, you know, the Japanese samurai type of game that kind of looks like an older Soulsborne game. Still looks pretty awesome. It's putting a new twist on the genre, so I'm here for it. My second favorite game of the entire thing was Skydance's The Bahamut. This is a VR2 game and just the gore in this is really selling me. It's from the team behind Saints and Sinners, the Walking Dead game, which is one of the best VR games I've ever played. People were getting their faces cut in half. There were heads getting punched off. I mean, that's exactly what I want to do in VR. So I'm glad that my virtual murderous tendencies are being supported on VR while they're not supported on mainline console games for some reason anymore. This is a game that would definitely get me to bust out the PSVR2, and honestly, it looked really good. It looked like a sort of mix between God of War, Skyrim, all those games that are set in like the Nordic fantasy realm. I'm here for it. I will be playing it. I'm also really excited about the Aliens PSVR2 game because it's a first-person shooter. We got the plasma rifle on screen. I don't want a walking sim VR game where I'm running and hiding. I'm sure I'll be able to run and hide from the xenomorph because that's what you do in Alien games, but having an actual, you know, gun to use makes this actually interesting to me. Silent Hill 2 Remake got a release date of October 8th. That is another Halloween game for sure. I know Silent Hill fans are not super excited about this, but you could never impress them. I will say the gunplay doesn't look awesome, but the actual like combat where you're using melee and stuff like that looks cool. It looks like a modern remake of Silent Hill 2 to me, and it does look a lot better than the last time they showed it. Hopefully they can get it even better looking for this October 8th release date. I'm very excited for this. I've played Silent Hill 2. It's a hard game to play for the first time in 2024. I played it a few times over my life, but yeah, they need to remake it to get new people in. I'm curious how this one's going to do, and I'm curious about how the gunplay is going to be in action, but that's really the only part of it that didn't look good to me. The voice acting sounded good. The graphics look good. Silent Hill has been brought to life in a cool way for 2024. I'm here for it. I think this belonged at the end of the show for sure. And then they ended the show with the Astrobot game that's not PSVR, so that's a nice upgrade for that little character. It looks like you're going to be able to go to different worlds that are themed around first-party games. I saw Nate Drake, I saw Kratos, I saw a bunch of characters like the guy from Journey and the guy from Shadow of the Colossus. So yeah, it looks like Astrobot has effectively replaced Sackboy as the de facto mascot for PlayStation. This game looks cool. I'm curious how it's going to sell because at the end of the day, it looks like yet another advertisement for the PlayStation 5. I mean, he flies around on a DualSense, it docks into a big PlayStation 5. It still looks really cool to me. I'll definitely pick it up. I'm just curious about it because, you know, it walks the line between advertisement and actual game, but the gameplay looks really good. I had a ton of fun with Astro's Playroom. The VR game I've never played, but I've heard it's amazing. Not necessarily the best game, I would say, to end the show with where Sony is at right now, but yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be a little disappointed walking away from this. I'm kind of going against my own advice here. I had higher expectations than I think I needed to going into a state of play. Like, the fact it was a state of play should have set my expectations. We really need a showcase. I think they could have had the two new CEOs come out and say, hey, this is what we're working on right now. All these games are coming out relatively soon. Look forward to a showcase around this time period later in the year, because that's when you're really going to hear about the big stuff that we're cooking. They need some sort of messaging around that, because I'm the biggest PlayStation fan in the world, or at least in the top 5. And, you know, I don't know what my favorite studios are working on right now, and it really kind of blows, honestly. I'm trying not to come off as negative. I am very excited to see what's coming in the future. I think Sony just needs to tell us about it. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the state of play. I'd love to hear what you're excited for out of all these games down in the comments below. Let's get into the rest of the video. Other than that, there's a new PS5 adapter coming out that's honestly pretty exciting. Your PS5 is finally a PS2 for real, and we know what the first round of games is. And Ubisoft might have just handed Sony a big W when it comes to finding their Call of Duty killer. Sorry, I have to make sure my dog isn't going to go pee on the floor. She's scared of thunderstorms. All right, so let's talk about this new PS5 adapter that Sony has submitted for release. This one's weird because it was never patented or anything like that, so we usually find out about what hardware editions Sony is working on by their patents, because everything like that is done publicly. And this is really interesting to me because what this adapter is going to do is unlock the full potential of your PSVR2. We heard back in February that Sony was working on a way to connect that thing to PC to kind of give people more of a reason to buy it, because there's just a dearth of games on the PlayStation 5. We've gotten a few ones like Legendary Tales, The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners Part 2, Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 4 VR. There's a few solid games on the PlayStation Store, but when you compare what's available on the PlayStation Store for VR to what you can get on Steam, it's like pennies to hundreds, basically. It's like there's just so many more games that are available on PC, and the cool thing about the PSVR2 is that it's the best VR headset I've ever really used. It's super light, it's super comfortable on the head, and to me at least, the Sense controllers are far and away the best VR controllers I've ever used. Before that, the reigning champ was definitely the Valve Knuckles, just because they track so much of your hand when you're using them, but you know, for the price and what they actually do, getting haptic feedback, getting adaptive triggers, getting that PS style layout on the actual controllers, I personally like the Sense controllers a lot more than the Valve Knuckles, and I like them infinitely more than the Oculus Touch controllers that they've used since the Oculus Quest 1, I want to say. The one thing that's kind of weird is I don't really know what this adapter is actually going to do, because if you didn't know, the PSVR2 is not wireless. It uses a single cable, but it's a USB-C cable, so I was assuming that you'd be able to just plug that USB-C cable right into your PC, completely unlock it as a VR headset that's usable with Steam, you're good to go there. But it looks like there needs to be some sort of pass-through where the headset will actually allow the computer to take advantage of it, and that's where this adapter is going to come in. As far as the price goes on something like this, the PlayStation Link adapter, which I was hoping would be a way to play with the DualSense and DualSense Edge wirelessly on PC, but really only works with headsets and the PS Portal so far, that thing is like 25 bucks. It goes in and out of stock pretty regularly. Like sometimes it's sold out, but it's usually pretty easy to get. I actually have two of them. I got one with my Pulse Elite. I got one with my Pulse Explorer. It works really well for what it does, but yeah, again, I wish it worked with the DualSense and DualSense Edge on PC, so I didn't have to use my 8-foot or 9-foot wire that came with the DualSense Edge to actually play those games on PC, but that's here nor there. I feel like the $20 buy-in is worth it. Like if you bought the PSVR2, you're obviously not worried about price. I gotta be honest, if I didn't have this channel and I didn't want to make a review video on the hardware, I would be a little bit iffy on picking it up, but as we know, right now during the days of play sale, the PSVR2 is $100 off, which actually makes it cheaper than a PlayStation 5, because with the Slim release, they raised the price of the digital model by around 50 or 60 bucks. So you can finally get a PSVR 2 for cheaper than a PS5 Slim. I think it's worth that $400 price, even if you're just going to play it with PS5, because there are that many games at this point. But if you've got a capable gaming PC and a PlayStation 5, or you just have a capable gaming PC, I think this thing is a no-brainer purchase, just because it's a great entry-level VR headset that punches well above its weight. Unlike the PSVR 1, the screens in this thing are absolutely phenomenal. They're OLED, they have black blacks, they look so dang good. I'm just also curious if the foveated rendering will be usable on PC, because that's another huge feature that really makes the PSVR 2 platform punch above the rest when it comes to playing on lower spec hardware compared to like a hardcore gaming PC. But speaking of adapters, someone hit me up on PSN and let me know that Sony has actually raised the price of the DualSense Edge adapters that allow you to swap out the thumbsticks. They've actually doubled the price from $20 to $40. I was kind of in shock when I read that, but I went and checked, and yeah, those things have doubled in price to $40. Now, this user said that they have gone through about 2 or 3 of them at this point. I don't know what game you're playing, but it seems like you're pretty dang hard on your controller. I use the DualSense Edge for every game I play, whether it's on PS5 or PC. I probably put over 1,000 hours into it since I picked it up right when it came out, and I gotta be honest, it still looks and feels like it did the day I got it. The little rubber on the PS3 style thumbsticks has not worn down whatsoever. It still works exactly how I want it to. The buttons don't stick like they do on my regular DualSense. And yeah, so I've never really had much of a need to pick up an extra adapter for my DualSense Edge until now. I'm assuming that because I just brought it up, I'm going to have to get one of these things in like 2 days because my thumbsticks are going to stop working. But yeah, this is kind of a bummer that they've doubled the price. They probably were like, oh, we're losing money on these things because people actually need them more than we thought. So we're doubling the price to make it $40 so we can actually make a little bit more money on them. They're adjusting for inflation, X, Y, and Z. Everything's getting more expensive these days, and it actually freaking blows. And that brings us to the second news story here, which is that your PS5 is finally a PS2. We got a leak last week that let us know that Star Wars: The Clone Wars was going to be one of the first games that were released under this new PS2 emulator that was being worked on by Implicit Conversions. That has become reality, but we're also getting 2 other games, and one of them is really exciting because, ironically, people have been reaching out to me on the PSN after they add me asking if this series is going to come back, and that's Sly Cooper. So in addition to the Clone Wars, you're going to be able to play Sly Cooper 1 on the PS5, and then there's a third game, which is Tomb Raider Legends. I played this game a ton in high school. I thought it was pretty good. So as far as these PS2 releases go, they're not all first party, which, you know, kind of is a bummer, but we're getting a good series that people remember from when they were little coming to the PS5, which is great. And this emulator does seem like it's going to be an actual upgrade over what we currently have on the PlayStation 5 because it's bringing along some new features. So the first feature you're going to get with this new emulator is the ability to upscale games to higher resolution. So like if you're playing a game on the PS2, I think that thing rendered between like 360 and 480p, not the best looking resolution. This new emulator is going to do its best to upscale the graphics. And on my Steam Deck, I upscale games a lot. I play a lot of PSP games. I play a lot of PS1 and PS2 games. I upscale them to the 800p screen and they look phenomenal. So if the emulator can do that all the way up to 1440p or 4K, that's just a win-win all around. And I'm glad we get that feature because the old PS2 emulator kind of had it, but it didn't really work all that well. They're also giving you the ability to rewind games, which is in other emulators of other consoles on the PlayStation 5, but I guess wasn't there in the PS2 emulator we had before. So if you die in a game and you don't want to wait to reload, or the checkpoint is a lot farther back than you thought, you could just rewind to before that death or get a quick redo and you'll be just fine. There's also going to be video filters, which is sweet. So I'm hoping there's like a CRT filter or something like that to bring it really back to the days of playing on a CRT TV, which is what the vast majority of people who had a PS2 were using back then. I know that like you could get composite cables that would allow you to use like 1080i TVs or like 720i, you know, those like weird plasma TVs that were around for that time period for just a few years that were like bridging the gap between true HD TVs and CRT TVs. And the last feature you're going to get, which goes, I guess, in tandem with rewinding, is quick saving. This is a great feature. Every emulator has it that I have on my Steam Deck. I used it a ton in Resident Evil 2 because the checkpoint system is so bad thanks to the fact that you have to use save rooms. Basically, if I died during a boss fight, I would just like do a quick save right before it and then load that. All these features are great. Some games I'd really like to see come to this emulator. Of course, the other Sly Cooper games would be awesome. The Jack trilogy would be great. There's old games like The Getaway that were really good Sony first-party games that were either underplayed or didn't perform as well as Sony wanted them to back in the day, so the series kind of died off. I'd love to see Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition in LA. Dub Edition was my first PSP game, but obviously the PS2 version is better. The loading times on the PSP version were insane back in the day. Need for Speed Underground, Underground 2, Most Wanted Black Edition. I mean, those are no-brainers. I'm pretty sure Pro Street had a PS2 version in addition to a PS3 version. I loved Pro Street back in the day. I feel like it was ahead of its time. There are so many Need for Speed games that are trapped. Of course, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil Outbreak 1 and 2. There are so many PS2 games that need to be ported up to the PlayStation 5, and I just hope that it happens quicker rather than slower. And again, all of these games, these three I just mentioned that are coming to the service, they're available for free with a PS Plus premium subscription. But the cool thing Sony does is they make them available to purchase a la carte, which is awesome because if you already own the games in your account like I did, then you'll be able to download them for free. That worked with PSP games like Killzone Liberation, so I'm just going to go ahead and assume it'll work with these Sly Cooper games, which I'm pretty sure, bought digitally before. Anyway, that brings us to the third news story here on the list, which is that Sony may have found its Call of Duty killer without even trying. I saw some messages in my PSN inbox. I've added, I think, around 200 or 300 people who have added me on the PlayStation Network, so I see these messages come in. I try to respond to all of them. Someone mentioned that they were playing XDefiant and they thought it was really good, so I downloaded the game. I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, but after looking at some gameplay, it looks like a return kind of to the classic Modern Warfare days, like Modern Warfare 2, that peak game that everyone loves to bring up as the best quality multiplayer that Call of Duty has ever had. I was partial to Black Ops 1. That was my first Call of Duty that I bought. I missed Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2 and all the ones in between, but Black Ops 1 had something special. Obviously, zombie mode was included in that, and me and my brother played that so much on our PlayStation 3s. But yeah, people love that Modern Warfare 2 style of multiplayer, and this doesn't have skill-based matchmaking as far as I can tell. So while a lot of the criticisms are that it's a little bit bare bones, the title of XDefiant is obviously horrible, and just like the overall theme of the game isn't anything crazy to write home about, people are generally seeming to love this game to the tune of around 8 million active users. This was revealed by Insider Gaming, and that's nothing to scoff at. Of course, this game is available on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, so that's obviously helping get the numbers up higher, and I'm curious if they'll kind of fall off very quickly or settle at around 4 to 5 million players, because if they can get to that number, that's a good quality number amount of people to have playing a game concurrently, that's specifically one that's competing with Call of Duty, which is like a juggernaut in the industry. It's basically the biggest game that comes out every single year. And the timing couldn't be better for this game. I know it's been a little bit rocky in the development. Like the open beta went over really well. I saw a lot of COD streamers saying they would switch to the game after being initially like super hesitant to even try it out. But we also just learned that Xbox is going to be giving away Call of Duty Black Ops 6 on Game Pass for Ultimate users this year. So with that in mind, I feel like that Game Pass model, while it's not going to be enough to get people to actually go out and buy an Xbox console, since Xbox seems to have given up on hardware completely, it'll definitely be enough to kind of sway people towards PC, because you can get Game Pass Ultimate through the Xbox app on PC, and it's like pay $100 for Call of Duty Black Ops 6 or pay a few bucks a month to actually get access to it on PC. I feel like a lot of people are going to go for that, so Sony needs something to kind of counteract that, and if they got 8 million players that are totally willing to download and play XDefiant, that's a good, healthy number of people who will make purchases within the game, and then Sony gets 30% of that cut. It's not going to be the like be-all end-all that kind of fixes their problem, but it gives them a little bit of breathing room while they try to figure out their own live service games that can make the insane amount of money that Xbox is about to make with Call of Duty. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you today. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.